Hello, good evening, everyone. I hope you're enjoying Sunday evening. And this time I thought that I've been regularly talking about mental disorders and its related issues. So I thought this time I'll not talk about mental disorders. I would talk about issues that are especially plaguing the teenagers. That is what my focus would be this time. Um, some of the topics that I would be taking up today is one of my favorite topics, न्यूरोसाइकोलॉजी और जब मैं कहता हूँ कि ब्रेन और उससे रिलेटेड एरियाज एंड उन ब्रेन के एरिया से आपके किस बिहेवियर में फर्क आता है एंड स्पेशली द सेट ऑफ पीपल दैट I'd like to talk about today is adolescents or teenagers. Now, talking of adolescents or teenagers, generally we look at the age bracket of for adolescents from 10 to the age of 19 years. 10 से 19 साल की एज वालों को हम देखते हैं. However, हम टीन्स को देखते हैं फ्रॉम द एज ऑफ 13 years टू 19 years. सो 13 साल से 19 साल तक के बच्चों को हम टीन्स में देखते हैं. And during this period, you get a lot of complaints, and especially the parents who have teenagers as their kids, they'd be able to relate that their kids have all of a sudden become very rebellious, or the kids are taking a lot of risk. Kids want to plunge into a lot of unexplored realms that they've never done before. They're a lot into risk taking, they're very high on emotions, they're very rebellious, very aggressive. So, what do we do? And what is it in such a situation that is essentially responsible? I'd like to mention that I'm not a neurologist, that I actually talking about the brain and its specific areas. However, I'd like to throw some insight because I have been studying about it for quite some time now. So I thought it is high time that I'd like to talk about some neuropsychology also. हम लोगों का जनरली ये ओपिनियन रहता है कि जितने भी टीनेजर्स हैं उनका स्पेशली व्हेन दे आर अराउंड 14 to 15 years of age, they are very conscious, they're very socially conscious, so they really do not know that whether this shirt is looking fine, whether these pair of shoes are doing all right with what I'm wearing, whether they're matching or they're not matching. They're very conscious. The social anxiety is very high for the teenagers. However, if I talk about the adults, for the adults, the social anxiety is not as high as what it would be in a teenager. So, आपका एक teenager kid all of a sudden इसके लिए cautious हो गया है कि मेरे बाल कैसे हैं, या मेरी टी शर्ट कैसी है, या शूज कौन से पहने हैं, या कौन सी जीन्स पहनी है, या वॉच पहनी है. तो उसके लिए देयर इज अ पर्टिकुलर एरिया दैट आईड लाइक टू टॉक अबाउट, मीडियल प्रीफ्रंटल कॉर्टेक्स. नाउ मीडियल प्रीफ्रंटल कॉर्टेक्स is essentially involved in when you're thinking about yourself and especially the emotions that are pertaining to one's self. So आपके रिलेटेड इमोशंस और स्पेशली जब आप अपने बारे में सोचते हैं, आप अपने आप को कैसे इमेजिन करते हैं, उन इमोशंस को जब हम एक्चुअली में ज्यादा सोचते हैं तो हमारा मीडियल प्रीफ्रंटल कॉर्टेक्स काम करता है. एंड मीडियल प्रीफ्रंटल कॉर्टेक्स जनरली इज एट इट्स पीक at the age of 15 years. So somewhere in the mid of teens, the medial prefrontal cortex is at its peak. So as a result of which, I will be very anxious, especially when it is social situations. I'd like to be very careful. How would I be seen as? How would I be perceived as? So I was told in one of my sessions that, the words that I use, they become incomprehensible at times. So this is the term that I was talking about, medial prefrontal cortex. So in medial prefrontal cortex, as I had mentioned, this particular area of the brain gets activated when you think about yourself and especially the emotional significance of a situation to yourself. this particular area is at its peak for a teenager. एक teenager के लिए ये at its peak होता है. तो as a result of which एक social anxiety and how am I being seen by others बहुत high रहता है. So that talks about why a teenager feels like in a social situation. The other thing that I'd like to talk about is why do teenagers want so much of pleasure seeking? कितना वो उतना ही इन्वॉल्व होते हैं प्लेजर सीकिंग में जितना कि एक अडल्ट होता है. एंड एट टाइम्स आपको लगता है कि वो ज्यादा इन्वॉल्व हो रहे हैं. सो दिस पर्टिकुलर एरिया ऑफ द ब्रेन दैट वी आर एक्चुअली टॉकिंग अबाउट इज एक्चुअली न्यूक्लियस अकम्बेंस. Nucleus accumbens is that area of the brain in which your pleasure seeking activity is involved. So nucleus accumbens is as mature as that of an adult. So which means कि अगर आपके parent का nucleus accumbens is there and that is equally as mature and you as a teenager is also equally mature, then the chances are that the way that your parent would seek gratification or satisfaction, you would also seek the same gratification. So the term that I'm using, because again I'd like to show the names today. So nucleus accumbens, that's the name, and it has pleasure seeking component to it. The pleasure seeking component is developed by nucleus accumbens. तो एक टीनेजर में ये उतना ही डेवलप्ड है जितना मेरे में होगा. तो जितना प्लेजर सीकिंग फॉर इंस्टेंस अगर मैं करूंगा उतना ही एक टीनेजर करेगा. बट हियर इज अ कैच. इन एन अडल्ट प्लेजर सीकिंग होगी पर उसके साथ यू विल हैव एन इंपल्स कंट्रोल. तो अगर इफ यू फील लाइक कि आई थिंक मुझे अभी बाहर जाके एक ड्राइव पे चले जाना चाहिए, आई थिंक आई फील लाइक गोइंग आउट, बट यू विल डू सम रीजनिंग and you will tell yourself कि नहीं, I don't think I should go for a drive, I have my work tomorrow. So you would rather not go out, you'd like to stay back home. However, talking again about the teenagers, in teenagers, dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, which is essentially related to controlling impulses. यानी आपकी कोई भी एकदम से इंपल्स आती है उसको कंट्रोल करना. मेरा मन कर रहा है कि मैं उसको जोर से मार दूं, पर when you control your urge or impulse, that is done by dorsolateral prefrontal cortex. तो एक अडल्ट में dorsolateral prefrontal cortex पूरा डेवलप्ड होता है. However, in a teenager, it is not developed. So nucleus accumbens pleasure seeking is as developed as an adult. However, your dorsolateral prefrontal cortex is not developed and it starts getting developed by early 20s, as a result of which pleasure seeking is very high and as a result of which your impulse control is very poor or very low. The whole idea for me to make this video is to tell you that the way that you reason is not necessarily the way that your kid reasons, especially if he or she is in the age of 10 to 19. The frontal lobe, which is responsible for reasoning and decision making, is not as developed as it is for an adult. So I would request you to please consider that even if he or she has mustache, if he has mustache or beard, or your daughter looks like as if she has matured or has become older, please still their way of thinking, their anxieties and their pattern of reasoning is completely different from what you actually do. So I hope this throws some insight. Brain plays a very important role and we are governed by it. So once again, this was just to generate some awareness apart from the mental disorders I've been talking of. A little bit of neuropsychology, talking of there is as much as pleasure seeking in teenagers as that in adults. However, there is very less of impulse control because of dorsolateral prefrontal cortex. And the analytical ability and reasoning is also very poor or very less because of frontal lobe. So ending it on this note, I hope this was a little bit informative and then also talks a little bit about the mindset of teenagers. Why are they so risky, as in why are they so into risk taking, and why do they enjoy so much of pleasure and with very less of impulse. I'd like to hear from you on these lines. What is it that you think about it? any inputs or any feedback or anything that you'd like to say, I'd be more than delighted to hear. Okay, so have a great evening ahead. Thank you.